I think first we should make preview quad index 0 give its data to the new player quad, and then we'll focus on sliding them up. But first we'll just get that working once. So when the player controller finishes falling, then it wants the game mode to spawn in a new quad. So here, instead of keeping this, we will call the pop preview quads queue and push new preview quad function. So let's do that. And then here we're going to call this function, which passes colors array into spawn new quad. And then I guess inside of this function we'll actually get rid of the 0th one, so get a copy. It's called get a copy, but since it's a copy of the reference, it's still going to affect the object. So at get index 0 we just want to tell this to dissolve, so we'll just make that a function inside of the preview quads. So we'll just have a event called begin dissolve add a timeline, and it has to be the same length, or it doesn't have to be, but it should be the same length as the one on the block BP, so that the dissolve sort of matches up with the anti-dissolve on the blocks. So here we do want it to go from 0 to 1, so that it'll be fully dissolved at the end. Oops, another track on accident, didn't mean to do that. Delete this track. I'll rename this track to dissolve percentage. So it'll begin at 0% dissolved. And end at fully dissolved. Now I am doing a sort of sloped value on the other side, but this will be fine here, I think. We'll see how it looks. And then we just need to do this for each of our static meshes. So each of our static meshes has the material on it, but we want to turn this into dissolved material, so dissolve base 1, or dissolve instance 1, sorry, and dissolve instance 0, and then just do the same thing for all 4 of these. So I'll get back to you when I've done that. This needs to be dynamic too, so unfortunately we're going to have to make 4 dynamic material instances. And we'll rename them something more appropriate in a moment. So we'll just call this BR dynamic mat, TR dynamic mat, BL underscore dynamic mat, and TL underscore dynamic mat. And then here, when we set the material, we actually need to create a dynamic material instance and set it to be based on this. So I am going to have to convert this to a sequence, otherwise it's just going to go on forever to the right, and that's no good. So I've collected these in the proper order again, so 0, 1, 2, 3, so I just know which index goes to which. And then I'm just going to copy this branch. Change the value here. 3, 2, 1, 0, and give these to the proper index. Now instead of setting the material like this, I need to create dynamic material instance. And set the proper value like that. And then plug this into, actually set it on the mesh. Same thing for the other path. Create dynamic material instance. Set for, this should actually be BL, not TL. And now I should be able to just copy and paste that and change the values. Then we'll drag all this out a little bit so I can add the sequence node. And update these one more time, 0, 1, 2, 3. And now we need to make sure we have the proper setup here. I should have changed these first, so I didn't have to do it 8 times again. Oh well, so we're just going to be dissolve instance 1, dissolve instance 0, dissolve 1, dissolve 0. This one's TL, so change this to set TL dynamic mat, TL dynamic mat, and then the TL static mesh. Get rid of that. BR, so now I'm going to rearrange this so that it's not overlapping. Just get all these lined up. And that should hopefully work for that part, but now we need to actually change them. So in the event graph, when the begin dissolve function or event is called, we will, on each of these, need to update their dynamic materials. So it doesn't matter what order we do, really. Set scalar parameter value, and its dissolve amount is the name within the material. So we just need to set the dissolve amount of each of these to the new value here. So again, this could be a sequence just to maybe clean it up. Plug in dissolve percentage to each one. Hopefully it doesn't look too messy. You can add some reroute nodes if you want, but I think since this is like the only thing in the function, it's not that big a deal if it isn't super neat. And then when it's finished, we need to destroy ourselves. So destroy actor, reference to self, and we'll see what happens now. It should only happen, it should only like work once, and then it might break after that. Or it'll break right away. Let's find out. Yeah, I don't think I'm actually calling the function, so let's see what's the proper thing here. Slide all preview quads up. So first we're going to take the index 0 one. And we're going to do begin dissolve. And for now that'll be fine. Just to test it, we want to, before we dissolve this one, we want to make sure it's the thing that the player quad becomes. So let's see if we get the orange in the top right corner and the orange in the bottom left corner in our next player quad. Yeah, so that kind of worked, but I see that the dissolve didn't quite work as anticipated. Looks like only the bottom left one is doing the dissolve animation. So let's check why that's the case. If we go back to the preview quad, it's because I didn't change this value to be the other three values, so just drag and replace. And let's see if now it's a little neater there. Okay, cool. I'm getting some errors though, getting very bad errors. Let's see. So the message log sometimes comes in handy when you check this tab here. You can click on the place where the error is occurring. So we're attempting to access, oh, this is because we aren't updating preview quad array when we, so this happens the second time we try to drop a block. So we can deal with that in a moment, but the other issue here, when we look at the warnings before we even started playing, it looks like, I believe the reason for all these warnings is because since this is the construction script, normally what's going to happen when we're playing is the game mode is going to spawn these and pass, an array of bools in on spawn time like this. But for the construction script and the purpose of inside the editor, it's going to give us that error whenever we try to compile this, I think, because there is no default value for this array. So just to give it a default value, so this shuts up about this, we can go ahead and give it some default values. So we'll just give it a size 4. And we'll just leave them all unchecked. And that should hopefully clear this. So if we now compile this again, it shouldn't give any errors like that again. Now the error that was so heinous before is just because we're not, it's trying to get these values, but we destroy that actor, so it's going to say, oh, that actor is destroyed or whatever. So here it's saying it's pending kill, so that's fine, because we're going to fix that right now. I'll go ahead and close these material editor tabs, which requires saving all the materials every time, but no need to have these open. It's just wasting memory. So now when the game mode slides these up, we dissolve this guy and then destroy him eventually. And so we need the other ones to move up and become these ones. So to do this, we can maybe make a function inside of preview quad, which will be move to target location. So let's make it just a event called move to target location, and the input value will be a target location vector target location, and this way we can set it and then update the name of the parameter and not worry about the parameters getting the wrong values. So I'll explain that in a moment. So this is going to get set by the game mode to the destination of where we want that quad to end up. So I think we can go ahead and swap around the references now. So we want to make a new array. Make array is what I meant to say. And then we will do this. So we want to put what's currently index 1 at index 0. I want to put what's currently index 2 at index 1. And we want to spawn in a new one for index 2 and have it slide into there. So actually, we'll probably have to rearrange our top level organization, but before we even worry about movement of sliding the quads around on the screen, I'm just going to do this and see what happens if it works as expected. So I'm going to set the array to this. And now what I am hoping is going to happen is the next time, there'll be some errors most likely. Hopefully it doesn't crash the whole project. But so the first time it's going to steal from this one, and the next time it should steal from this one, even though I haven't moved around the screen. It should hopefully do that. Yes. And now there's nothing left, so we might get an error, yeah. But that's actually what we want to have happen, so that's good. So we're effectively sliding these up one index in the array and making the index 2 just blank. So eventually we're sliding blank into blank and blank into blank, and then that's why we get an error, because we're trying to pull from nothing here. So that's good. And now we want to add the new one in and then slide them all up. So here the slide is referring to, I meant to refer to it visually, but it's also kind of like, you know, actually sliding them along the array indices, but also sliding them up visually. So to get them to slide up visually, we need to just do a for each loop here. And we can just do this, where we get a copy and connect our preview quads array to this for each loop. And then here we do set target, or move to target location, and have this be the target location. The current index of this loop corresponds to the indices for this array. So, you know, the preview quad at index 0 is going to get the location that we want index 0 to be located at. And we still need to add the new one to the array, but we'll worry about that in a moment. So now we want to implement that function inside preview quad. So move to target location is just going to do like a timeline. Translation from, you know, starting to target. And it's just going to be another float value, which is like percent traveled, or, you know, there's probably better ways to call that, whatever you want to call it, but it's going to start at 0 and end at 1 at the end of the time allotted. So that's 0.8 seconds to match up with the dissolves. And on update, we're going to set actor location. And of course we need a starting location, which I'm going to set to a vector. And the tooltip, I'm going to write the location where this actor was located at the start of the move to target location event. So when this event is called, we're going to get our starting location, which is not necessarily where we spawned in, but where we were before the current slide starts. And that's just going to be get actor location. And then we want to set our location using the ease function, which interpolates between two values. And so it's going to interpolate between starting location and target location. Cross the streams a little bit here. But I don't need to do that if I pull this out a little bit. I can just bring this in. So we're going to move from starting location to target location. And the alpha, which is how much of it, how close is it to A, how far is it from B? At 0 it's all A, and at 1 it's all B. So at the end will be at location B, which is the target location. That should hopefully make sense. It's very similar to the other interpolation function we used earlier for the colors. And then that's just what we set as our current location as this event chugs along. So we'll see if that works. It's probably going to be too fast. Maybe we can change that, or too slow even. But now we're having the errors again because there's nothing to pull from, so it's just defaulting to solid zeros. So let's fix that error before we worry about fine-tuning the sliding effect. To fix that, we just need to make a new preview quad. So instead of my initial layout for this function was I had make new preview quad happen after slide up, but it's actually going to happen inside of slide up. So delete that for now. And then inside of here, before we make this array, before we push everything up and make that array, we need to make the new quad. So we'll call make new preview quad here, and this is going to have an output, which is the newly created preview quad. So of type preview quad reference, and I'll just call it new preview quad. And it's not an array, it should be a single element. And inside this, all we're going to do is do something very much like what we did in the this event graph here at the beginning of begin play, where we decide new colors and then spawn in. We're going to do the same exact thing here, except the location is going to be a bit different. In fact, I can just add one more element to this array, and this is going to be the it'll be one more down, so it'll be 0. Actually, it just happens to be 0. 1200, 800, 400, 0, and that's going to be the starting location for the new one that's going to slide up into place. So that may make sense in a moment. When I make new preview quad, we decide the colors at random as before, and then the spawn transform location is always going to be index 3 here. So I could make a comment here, or if you just know it's a new one, it's always going to spawn at the bottom, so it's the bottommost location where it starts at, and then it's immediately going to start moving up into index 2 location, because that's what it's going to be set as in the new array. So it's got its new random colors, it's being spawned in, and then we're getting a reference to it. And then here on the slide all function, the slide all preview quads up, the output of this function is that new quad we just created, and that's going here in index 2 of the array. So now when we call this function on index 2, it's going to get index 2 of this array, which is the new location that it's going to end up in. So now a new one should appear all of a sudden, and it will appear like down here and slide up into this position, like so, which is pretty good. In the real game, it slides up from nothing like this, but it doesn't appear. Like, it slides up from a bar of nowhere, like it's a pocket dimension that immediately comes up through, and you can see it appear over the horizon. So we could do that by having just like a black box literally that on screen here that this slides up in front of, or we can just leave it as it is. It's up to you how much polish you want to add to this project. I'm adding as much as I can as I go, but at some point I have to stop, otherwise I'd spend months on this and it would end up being a full-fledged thing, but gotta stop somewhere at some point. So now I think that's working. I'm not seeing any errors, which is good. It's properly getting the right one. I think what I would change is have the sliding, not start immediately as soon as that one starts dissolving, but perhaps ease into a slide and ease out, so I can change the easing to be in out instead of linear, which we can go ahead and do that right now. And then maybe speed up the dissolve. What I mean is the player quad here appears to spawn in before this one has despawned. We'll watch that right now. So we need to change that so it happens a little quicker. So when we spawn out here, I'm also going to just remove all of these and slide these up so that the middle of the event graph. And I will change this timeline so it goes a little faster, 0.5 perhaps. And the easing function for the sliding up from below, I'm going to try, ease in out. This value affects how much the easing, how much it tapers off before it stops completely. So that maybe looks a little better, a little more interesting. Hopefully not too distracting to the player either. I think it looks a little better, so that's good. Now obviously the next big thing we should work on is scoring and combos. And obviously you probably want sound effects. That is a huge part of what makes a game feel more, immersive and exciting. And then we'll see where to go from there, but that might be good enough once we get sound and UI. So we'll work on, the UMG widgets and everything. That's a whole nother thing we haven't even started yet. It's pretty fun, pretty simple to get a good UI going. And then we'll do the little combo meter that appears above the timing bar. And yeah, so scoring, UI, and a game over state is also the final crucial piece of the puzzle that we have, like literally the bare minimal parts of the game. And then it's up to you how far you want to take it, if you want to go beyond that and add multiple like level skins, multiple songs, multiple difficulty levels where it speeds up over time, gets more difficult. It's all up to you. That's the fun of making your own game. You can do whatever you want. And Unreal makes it pretty easy to do a lot of things relatively simply. So I'll see you in the next video when we work on UI elements and the combo meter and scoring system.